Alrighty, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of Devil's Den Hockey. So, we just wrapped up watching Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Final, Florida Panthers versus the Edmonton Oilers. And, boy oh boy, do I have some thoughts. So, let's get into this really quickly. So, Florida Panthers defeat the Edmonton Oilers 4-1 in Game 2, taking a 2-0 series lead for the Stanley Cup Final. Now, this is huge on a couple of levels. One, giving Florida a 2-game lead in a Stanley Cup Final or any series is going to be a tough one to crawl out of, at least with the Rangers. It was a very back-and-forth series, 1-0, 1-1, 2-1, 2-2, 3-2, and then and then 4-2, right? But with this, Edmonton has to now climb out of a 2-0 hole to try to get... I feel like they have to basically win both games in Edmonton to keep this series going. Because if they go back to Edmonton and they win Game 3, that's a 2-1 series. But then if they lose Game 4 in Edmonton, Edmonton is now down 3-1 in a series, with Florida only needing to win one more game and Edmonton needing to win 3. Is it possible they win both games in Edmonton? Absolutely. However, based on what I'm seeing in Game 1 and 2, they're going to have to step up a lot more than they are right now. Game 1, I thought Edmonton played nearly perfectly. Second game, not so much. Edmonton didn't feel like they stepped on the gas. In fact, it felt like they took a step back in how they wanted to approach Game 2 in comparison to Game 1. So, let's go over some big things. First of all, Sergei Bobrovsky having another game where his save percentage is going to be over .915. Guy made one mistake the entire game. Yeah, Edmonton only had like 14, 15 shots, but again, this guy made one mistake in not tightening up that 5-hole in order to stop the puck, and Edmonton gets their only goal. From then on, this guy played, again, phenomenally. There was a couple of really tight chances that Edmonton had on the side of the net, from Draisaitl's one-timer, almost pulling a Jack Hughes, shooting it basically at the goal line. Bobrovsky having to really dive to side to cover that area. But Bobrovsky, again, played a great game. Not as good as Game 1, but that's because Edmonton didn't have as much offense in Game 2. But Bobrovsky, again, showing why, in my humble opinion, if the Panthers win the Cup, Bobrovsky should be winning the Conn Smythe. Because the guy is still playing phenomenally, despite the fact that, again, while Edmonton only having like 14, 15 shots, this guy has allowed one goal on, I'm pretty sure, close to 50 to 60 shots so far in this series alone, and we've had 2 games to play. Second of all, I want to go over this knee-on-knee that happened earlier in the game between, I can never pronounce his name, Fuegel? I can't pronounce his name, and I can't pronounce his names. In the game, there is a knee-on-knee where a Florida Panther player has the puck, and it looks like he's dragging his back leg a little bit, and the Edmonton guy comes in, and you see, if you see the angle from the back of the Edmonton Oiler player, he clearly sticks out his leg. Not a whole lot, but he does stick the leg out, and he clips the Florida Panther player knee on knee. Originally, it was called a 2-minute power play for Florida, but then they decided to go, no, we're going to review this, and we're going to turn it into a 5-minute major, and the Edmonton player is going to get ejected from the game. Now, first of all, it's clearly a 2-minute penalty. He clearly sticks his leg out and clips the Florida player. Clearly, that's a 2-minute penalty, right? For whether you want to call it tripping or slew footing or whatever you want to call it, that knee-on-knee penalty, it can't happen. There is intent there because he's literally sticking out his leg to clip the guy. But now, there's an issue. Because he gets ejected, fine, whatever. The referees decide to make the decision. And they do. He decides, we're going to eject the guy. Here's the problem that I'm having, okay? Is that later in the game, Leon Draisaitl decides to see a Florida Panther player against the boards and leap up, leaves his feet, and clips the guy with an elbow to, many will say it's not technically the head, but he clips him in the jaw. And he takes Barkov, Florida Panthers, Draisaitl clips Barkov with an elbow to the chin. And Barkov goes down the tunnel, most likely because he has concussion-like symptoms, or he's dizzy, or nauseous, or whatever it is. He goes down the tunnel. Barkov did not come back to the game at all. The only reason I bring up the injury to Barkov is if you were watching the Sportsnet broadcast, one of the things they highlighted for why Fagel got ejected, the Oilers player who clipped the Florida guy knee-on-knee, was because there was an injury on the play. And Luosterainen, I think that's how you pronounce his name. I'm awful with names, so forgive me. Gets sent down the tunnel to be looked at because he's injured. He gets hit in the knee, he hits the ice, and he has to be carried off by two other guys. He does end up coming back later on in the game, but he has to go down the tunnel, so he's clearly injured or has to get looked at. And that was one of the big reasons why they said, hey, this needs to be a 5-minute major because of the fact that, and an ejection from the game, because there was an injury after the fact, on top of the fact that it was an illegal hit. Right? You can't knee a guy. But in Draisaitl's case, if you want to leap off your feet, leave the ice, and clip a guy with an elbow to his head, whether you want to say the chin is still part of the skull, folks. Sorry I had to remind people of that. But if you want to leave your feet and clip a guy with your elbow to a man's head, 2-minute penalty. No ejection, no, and they didn't even review it. That's the worst part. They looked at it for like 5 seconds, and then was like, yeah, that's just a 2 minutes. So once again, we have a situation where the NHL has decided, the bar has been set, the precedent has been set in this series, that knee-on-knee injuries should be treated more severely and with more importance than shots to the head. Have I not been talking about this for like at least with Trouba on the Rangers? And for people who are going to give me shit going, well, you're not going to go as hard on Draisaitl as you are on the Rangers because you hate the Rangers and Draisaitl's a star. No. Draisaitl should be getting at least 1 to 2 game suspension. Probably 1, let's be honest, first-time offender. He's probably gonna. He won't because they're not because it's not a 5-minute major, so it's not gonna get reviewed by player safety because that's how that works. If you get a 5-minute penalty, if you get a 5-minute major, they immediately look at it because he didn't get a 5-minute major. They're not gonna look at it, so it's gonna go right under the rug, like a lot of headshots this year. And he's not gonna get a suspension. He's not. But this is strike 1 for Draisaitl in my books. In my book, this is strike 1 for Draisaitl. You hit a guy in the head, immediate suspension. Draisaitl does it again, gone. Gone, I don't care. I'm so tired of headshots ruining people's careers, ruining series, and sucking the fun out of hockey. It really is. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, you're a crybaby. This is a Stanley Cup final. Suck it up, pumpkin. But it's got where do we draw the line, guys? Like, really, where do we draw the line on when it's appropriate to, go after a guy in terms of, suspensions? When is it, when do we draw, does someone have to be just, concussed for 30 games for us to give a shit? Legit question here. But yeah, I'm a little miffed with that because, again, if you want to hand out an ejection on a knee-on-knee, I don't know if I agree or disagree with it, but, that's within a referee's purview. But the fact that a knee-on-knee injury, the fact that a knee-on-knee hit is going to be seen as a worse offense than a lunging elbow to the skull is mind-boggling to me. Completely mind-boggling to me. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. I gotta change the topic because I could perseverate on this topic for weeks on end and still not be okay. But yeah, so the question is, how does Edmonton respond to being down 2-0 in a series and heading back to Edmonton? The only thing that I think that Edmonton can really do is they just have to beat down Florida more than Florida is beating them down. Because Florida is an incredibly physical team. They really are, right? And you can watch any Florida game and you'll see that, right? And Florida right now is suffocating Edmonton's forwards and beating them down and grinding them down until they've got nothing left. And they're really good at that. Edmonton's got to do the same. Darnell Nurse left the game. I don't know if he's injured. I don't know if he's hurt. I don't know if there's an issue. I don't know if they just don't want to play him right now. But the rest of the defense, specifically guys like Bouchard on Edmonton, who's played so well, right? Has played really, really well up until this series. He's played kind of okay. Like he's been all right this series. Nothing to write home about. But they've got to step up, and Edmonton's got to kick it into the next gear because they're a good team. Game 1, they showed that they can put Florida on the ropes. Because if Bobrovsky hadn't been in net, Edmonton wins Game 1. There's no doubt in my mind that if Bobrovsky's not in net for Game 1, I think Florida loses and we have a 1-1 series. But because you've got Bobrovsky, you have to throw every single opportunity you get at him and hope to God it goes in. Because guess what? Tonight's game, where he let in the one goal from a really weird, dicey goal that, let's be honest, he probably should have had, right? There is cracks, there is chinks in that armor. So you got to throw every single thing you have at this guy, okay? Last thing I want to talk about. And I know this series isn't over yet, not by a long shot. I think Edmonton's going to try to storm back. I wouldn't be surprised if Edmonton wins Game 3, Florida wins Game 4, and then, Edmonton wins Game 5, and then Florida wins Game 6, and then just end the series there. And this is something that really has been bothering me for a while. So, I've mentioned this in other videos, that I've basically been raised in a Leaf household. Right? My mom's been a Leafs fan for long time, 40, 50 years at this point. Poor her, I know. And one of the things that I see from Leafs fans a lot is that, and even non-Leafs fans, is that, Marner sucks, Nylander sucks, Matthews sucks, Tavares sucks because they never show up in the playoffs. Where's McDavid? Where's McDavid this series? 2 games, 1 assist. If even that. I don't even know if he has 1 assist. I don't even know if he has a point. I think he has 1 assist. Where is he? Where's McJesus? Because I'll tell you right now, if the rest of this series continues the way it's been going now, which is probably not likely, but if McDavid finishes this series with a point or 2 or 3 points in 6 or 7 games, I think it's time for a frank conversation on why certain players in the league don't get held to the same level of expectation or standard than others. When Mitch Marner isn't producing Leafstown, people give him hell. And rightfully so. If you don't produce it in the big times, you don't deserve ice time. You don't, right? But when McJesus, as some people have called him, the Messiah of hockey, doesn't get points in the big times, doesn't come up clutch in the playoffs, in a Stanley Cup final, where will the criticisms be? It's a genuine question that it's a question I've got in the back of my head, but we'll see how the rest of the series turns out. Maybe in games 3 and 4, he gets back-to-back hat tricks. I don't know, but I think it's a conversation worth having, because it's weird to me that certain players on certain teams get, publicly crucified, specifically on social media. But then, like, other players who do have the same lack of production when it matters, when it counts, seem to be able to sidestep the issue a little bit. And it feels a little weird to me. Anyways, I've talked for long enough. I need some water because my throat's going hoarse. We will be back for Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Final, which I believe is going to be Thursday night because there's a two-night travel time to go back to Edmonton, and then Game 3 is on Thursday, I believe. There will be a Devil's Den video after Game 3, so feel free to swing by after the game. And, yeah, that's going to be it for me, guys. Have a good night, and I will see you in the next one. Adios.